Life and Death. And it is, I think it's called a gender bend of the original book, Twilight. I heard about this and I went and picked it up like the day of, and because I always thought it was cool. And the reason, I guess, why I wanted to read this book was because, well, first, Twilight has been in my life for a very, very long time. Since I think I was 13 in middle school, and I'm in college now, so it's been a while. And I know that Twilight, it's either you love it or you hate it, it seems like. And I loved it. I always have. It was the first saga, like, series that got me into reading. And I loved it. It was my first, like, fantasy book, and I loved it. And I still do. And that's why I wanted to pick this up, because since it's a gender bend, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, it's, instead of Edward being, you know, the vampire, then like kind of one of the main characters, and then Bella being like kind of she's also a main character, but she's the human, she's kind of like the damsel in distress. And I always wondered, I mean, I loved it, and I will stick to the original story, that being my favorite, and I'll get into that later. But I always wondered what it would be like if I was, this is so embarrassing, but I always thought this when I was like little, when I was 13, first reading this. I wondered what it'd be like if like the girl character, or like I could relate to, was the main character, the vampire. And I'd always like, not always, but I would wonder what that would be like. And so when I heard that that's what this was, where the girl was the vampire, the main character, everything was kind of wrapped around her, I thought that was really cool. And so I went and picked it up, and I finished, I went and read, it's a full like 700 pages if you include Twilight, and the Life and Death is, let's see how many pages that is. It is 387. And I think I read this in about 2 days, and I guess this is the part where I'll get into the review. And also, if you haven't read this yet, there's going to be spoilers in this. So if you don't want to know how it ends or anything that might give it away, I would suggest clicking out of this. But if you want to know my honest opinion and my review on this book, then we'll continue. Okay, so on Goodreads, if you don't know that website, it's like basically a Facebook for people who are bookworms. I gave it a 3 stars. If they would let me, I would give it a 2.5. I don't think it deserves a 2, but I don't know if it really deserves a strong 3, but it won't give me like right in the middle. So I would rate this 2.5 stars. And this is, keep in mind, this is my opinion. Also, I haven't read the Twilight books in years. I mean, I started when I was 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that time. And I ran like right through them. So like, it's been a hot minute since I've read these, so I could have some of my stuff wrong. But it was a good book. I will give it that. It was a good book. I liked, for once, having, you know, the girl getting kind of the spotlight. And not that I'm against, like, you know, the other way around. I just, since this used to be like a big part of my life, I thought that it was just cool having like it being switched. And I liked it. It was so weird, because it was just like, I imagine, you know, everyone is the same, like, instead of, like, I imagine the same characters from the movie. And so like Alice and all of them were still in it, they just had different names. And so I imagine, you know, Edward Cullen as, what's his name, Robert Pattinson. And so it was just weird, because like, you know how Bella in Twilight, she is really clumsy. So like in here, Edward, which instead of, I mean, it's switched now. Also, instead of Bella and Edward, it is Edith and Beau. And so Beau is like tripping and he's like stumbling, and it was just like weird imagining like Edward Cullen, like Robert, like stumbling around. It was just, I don't know. So there was some parts, it was just kind of weird for me, but I know I went through it. It was cool having like the girl being the main character for once, Bella getting, or you know what I mean. Anyways, so I liked it up until the last couple chapters. So, well, also they kept out, sorry, also this review, I'd never done one before, so I'm doing this in a style like if I was talking to you, if like you were right in front of me. This is how this review is going to go. So they left out like a lot, but at the same time, she patched some stuff that people always had questions on. Like, she filled in a lot of details that were missing, but she left out, instead of Jacob Black, like that whole storyline, he also is a girl now, so his name was Jules. That whole storyline kind of got left out, and I understood that, because I knew she wouldn't like continue this into like a saga as well. So I liked it, and up to the very end, it got to the part where in the original, where Bella went to go save her mom, and she got bit. You know, Edward Cullen comes and he like sucks the venom out and everything. Well, I always wondered, not always, but I wondered what it'd be like if he did turn. I mean, if she did turn, if they didn't get there in time and she turned. I wonder what that would be like. So I was reading it, and they got there, but they didn't get there in time. And so in the book, Bo asked him the choice. So like, would you rather, you know, die, or would you rather turn into one of us? And he was struggling and everything because, you know, the venom was spreading through his body, and he chose to stay with Edith and be a vampire. So that's how it did. They killed the vampire that did that to him, and he turned. And this is the part where I didn't like, because it was near the very end, I could tell. And I was like, I think she's going to try and fit all the books into this last like 2 chapters. And so, and she did. So it got to the end, he turned, and he, you know, he loved it, of course, just like Bella did. And in the original like storyline, you know, Bella was this vampire who was like almost better than all the other, I don't know how to describe it, not better, but she could do a lot more than like original vampires like could. Like usually right away, like they're thirsty, they're agitated. She was fine. Like she had all the stuff that would take normally like firstborn vampires take them like decades to like get over, and she was fine. And so that was one of her cool, like amazing things. She didn't have to give up seeing her dad. Like she was able to control herself, teach herself how to, sorry, there's like a hair in my mouth. She was able to control herself, and she got to see her dad, and it was like great. And in this, they had to kill him. They had to fake his death, and it was just awful because they had to do the whole scene where the vampire was tracking, you know how in the original story, the vampires were tracking Bella because they thought it was a game and they wanted her blood and everything when they were playing baseball. People who don't know Twilight, and if for some reason they're watching this, they're going to be like, what the heck is the story? But all my Twilight fans, you guys know what I mean. And what was I saying? So that whole scene happened where, you know, in the original story, Bella had to like yell at her dad to convince him to like let her leave. And so they left, and she did it for his safety. Well, that happened in this book. Bo had to say all this stuff to hurt Charlie's feelings to let him go to save him. Well, that's how it left. When they had to fake his death, they left it like, so Charlie was in this mess. Her mom, like his mom was in a mess. And I don't know, like the thing is, Bo and Bella, they had like, this is just me, this is just how I view it. They had the ability to figure something out, to like let their parents see them, to go on. Like they could have figured something out. And so, I mean, I know the whole, well, they're not going to age. I'm just, well, then they did it in the original like story. I don't know why they couldn't do it in this. And it's so funny because I finished reading it, and then she has like a little afterword, and she was like, I do not feel bad for faking his death. And I'm like, you go, girl. So I didn't like it. I'm sure there would be people who do like it. I just wasn't a fan of it. And then so Jules, like the whole Jacob Black scene, like, well, Jacob and Jules, like that never really developed because it was before she even, like in the first book, didn't Jacob, he didn't even know he was a werewolf. Well, Jules didn't either. So like that whole friendship never formed. And then like, oh, and they put the proposal in the book too. Like instead of waiting to like the other parts, like all this happened. Like they haven't known each other that long. I mean, I understand it's a fiction like book. I know like this isn't real. It felt like I liked it so much, and then all of a sudden it like rushed, and like it fit so much in the last 2 chapters. He turned, he faked his death, his poor parents, and then he proposes like in like the last chapter. And it wasn't even a cute proposal. It was like, oh yeah, will you marry me? Sure. Like I was like, I don't know, this is just me. I keep saying this is just how I feel about it. And they just, it was going so like decent. I mean, I knew when I picked this up that I wouldn't like it better than Twilight. I thought it would be a fun read. And I liked it up until the very end. It was just so rushed. Like they just fit like the whole saga in like the last 2 chapters. And so, I mean, I liked it at the same time because you knew how it ended. Because I was like reading this halfway, and I was like, I wonder how this is going to end, because I know she won't finish it and like keep going like the other ones. And so it was, I don't know, that's just how I feel about it. My feet are falling asleep. I'm like sitting on my feet. Okay. And I don't know, this is like all over the place, but I've never done a book review before, and I wanted this to be like if we were just talking, like I said before. So overall, I do give it 2.5 stars. I don't think I'll ever pick it up and read it again, but I'm going to keep it just because, you know, it's the 10th anniversary and you flip it over and you've got Twilight, which that's really cool. Like, and then if you put it on its binding, it's like all not upside down, it all goes together. So if you had it on your shelf, it would like, you could tell it was the books and everything. And so that's what, if you also want to know, this is what the cover looks like. I thought it was really cool. I thought, yeah, it definitely stood out. And I mean, I guess you'll have to read it to see if you like it yourself. They had also, like, there's more little details, but I'm not really going to go into that. Like, Beau is more jokeable and laughable than Bella was, and like all this stuff. And I don't know. I guess you're like, you're a mess. And I'm like, I know. I'm just trying. I don't know. Like, I was just so, I stayed up till, I wanted to finish it in like 2 days. And so I stayed up till like 3 in the morning, and I had class the next day. I had to be up at 6. And so I was really tired, and like, I finished it, and I was just, when I put it, like, I closed it, and I was like, what? I was not expecting that. It drained me. Like, I don't know if anyone has this problem. Like, you know, there's such things as like book hangovers and stuff. I finished this, and I was like, whoa. I don't know. Like, I was just kind of upset because I liked the book. Like, I've seen horrible reviews on this book, and I was like, oh, great, maybe I shouldn't buy it or shouldn't read it. And I read it and I liked it. I didn't like the ending. So yeah, I'm sorry if this is all over the place. I promise I'll get better at it. But I just kind of wanted to get this up since it's new, and kind of let people know what I think about it. I'm not like a booktuber. I'm not like a professional like book reviewer or whatever. This is just my thoughts on the book. So yeah, I mean, I would like to do this. This is fun. I read a lot. I promise I'll get better at it. So yeah, I like doing these book reviews and just kind of sitting and talking about the books. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Stephenie Meyer Life and Death book. I wish it would have been the Midnight Sun book, but you can't have it all. So yeah, again, these are my thoughts on I almost hit myself, the Life and Death book. And I would recommend it. I mean, if you want to read it, and if you're a Twilight fan, go read it. I mean, it's it took me like 2 days to read it. It wasn't that bad. It was a very easy read. And you also see like the little details in it. I'm not going to bore you with all of that, and I'm sure you can find it on the internet somewhere. But yeah, this is my review on the book Life and Death by Stephenie Meyer. And